Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. As you know, nearly every week we like to talk about some form of entertainment that is new or hitting the theaters. And this weekend, Veterans Day weekend, it is very important to pay homage to those who have gone before us and helped us keep this freedom that we just celebrated in the election this week. You know, the fact that we can still do that and have that peaceful transference of power and all that stuff has been paid for in billions of gallons of patriots' blood. And our military men and women have kept us free for all this time. That's why this new project called Fighting Spirit is so intriguing to me. It traces some stories of some service members that we don't often think about, but probably should. The writer, producer, director of the project is Richard Hull, and he joins us. Richard, thanks for being here. Chaplains are an interesting form of the service because they don't carry sidearms. They are often literally undefended in terms of, you know, their own personal well-being, and yet they're so vital to what happens. What made you feel inspired to do Fighting Spirit?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Kevin.
Absolutely.
I greatly appreciate it. And I think that's really what intrigued me is what in the world would make somebody want to go to combat wearing a uniform but carrying no weapon? That just is a head scratcher. And clearly it's not a job that one does just for a paycheck. It's obviously motivated by something far larger. I think the word we use in the film is calling. It's a calling for people. And I think that's probably a good word, although we may not even be able to put why they do it into words. And yet when they go to their office, it's set against the chaos of war, and that collision of two different things is just something that I don't think we'd ever seen explored cinematically. And so I was brought into this movie 4 years ago. It's been a long 4-year labor of love journey that it started with my friends at Paulus Productions, which is a nonprofit production company based in Los Angeles. It was started by a Catholic priest 60 years ago. Mm-hmm. They wanted to make this movie about military chaplains. And I had made a prior movie, a documentary with the U.S. Army in the past that Halle Berry and I had made called For the Love of Liberty, the story of America's Black Patriots. And she and I won a bunch of big awards on that. And so I think Paulus thought that I had a particular trust with the military. And I think maybe that turned out to be correct. And this is my 28th movie as a producer, but it's my first as a director. And so the more I learned about the subject matter, I was so intrigued by it. And I then was able to get in contact with a guy named Jeff Struecker, who is a former Army combat chaplain and Army Ranger who was portrayed in the movie Black Hawk Down, and said, "Hey, would you be interested in having your story portrayed in this movie?" And he said, yes. And then I reached out to my friend Chris Pratt, and he said, yes, these are stories worth telling. And we partnered with the U.S. Army Chaplain Corps, and everybody just kept saying yes, and it created a life of its own. And now that's
like a little seed that grew into an entire forest of things.
It is, and now it sort of comes to an end with the movie coming out in theaters for Veterans Day.
Well, hopefully it's just the beginning of people beginning to see it and understand it. Tell us a little bit about the film itself. I understand that there was a Army combat chaplain that his remains had been missing for some time, since World War II, I think. How does that interplay with kind of the main narrative of the film? You've got one chaplain that kind of serves as our guide through the experience, but kind of break it down for us.
Yeah, that's a great question. Here's the thing about documentaries. You make a plan at the beginning, and the only thing you know for sure is that the plan's going to be wrong. And in this case, Father Capon was sort of a unplanned part of making this movie. And so we were probably halfway done with the movie. We had identified the stories we wanted to tell. We'd already shot a lot of interviews and started compiling those stories into kind of different little vignettes. But the movie was really having a hard time finding its voice. And one day we looked up and we heard about Father Capon's remains being identified. So he had died as an Army combat chaplain. He was a Catholic priest 70 years earlier in a Korean prisoner of war camp. He had the opportunity to be freed, and he chose not to. He chose to stay with the soldiers, and it led to his death. And so when his remains were identified, we had heard that they were going to bring them back to the U.S., give him a burial properly and a funeral in his hometown of Wichita, Kansas. And My partner on the project is Justin Roberts, who's a former Army combat chaplain himself and a veteran. And that's important because I'm not a veteran. My dad is a veteran. I have a lot of veteran in my family, but I'm not. And so Justin came on board early to really be a veteran lens so that when we were telling these stories, it would be truly authentic. And Justin was back from the military. He was in Lake Charles, Louisiana, where he lives. He was trying to figure out what the next phase of his life was going to be. And he was really struggling with that. And so we heard about Father Capon being discovered. And so we sent Justin and a camera crew off to Wichita to shoot whatever this was going to be. We didn't quite know how it would fit in, but we just thought that it might. And Justin thought nobody would show up. And when he got there, I guess if you know anything about the Catholic Church and the military, they know how to put on a good show. And so everybody came from far and wide. The city of Wichita shut down. It was this huge event. And it really became a pivotal moment in Justin's life and his journey. And I guess there's that word journey. That's in the title of the movie. We all seem to go on a journey on this movie, but obviously Father Capon's journey came to an end with that. And I think weaving those two stories together, the Justin's journey to greet the remains of Father Capon, and then also the other stories that we had set out to tell of a select number of the 419 combat chaplains who died in service for this country. Weaving those together, I think, is really where the movie found its magic and its heartbeat. And I think that's really what audiences seem to be responding to.
Well, I would like to encourage everyone that's listening and watching on radio and TV right now to go to fightingspiritfilm.com, fightingspiritfilm.com. You can see where it's playing. You can access tickets. You can schedule your show times. But this weekend, as we celebrate the sacrifice of our veterans and the service that they have put forward on our behalf, again, every one of us owes a free weekend for us to be out and about with our families and doing what we enjoy doing, because men and women have put on the uniform and sometimes paid the ultimate price. These were the people that helped those people paying that price endure those hardest moments. And sometimes gave their lives as well. So go check it out, fightingspiritfilm.com, fightingspiritfilm.com. Richard Hull, the director, producer, writer, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Kevin.
You got it. Kevin McCullough, we're coming right back from Times Square. The New Music Spotlight is straight ahead. Stay here.